Welcome to Which is Better, a rental car or taking the Disney bus to travel between the parks? In this post, I want to specifically look at a comparison between the cost involved with each option, the time involved in each option, and just the overall experience you will have going between the two. So, if cost is your main concern, Disney transportation is always free except for the minivans, which is through the Lyft app where you are hiring a private rideshare service to take you from point A to point B. So, cost wise, Disney's free transportation is always going to be the cheapest. For a rental car, you will need to consider the cost of the daily cost of just having the car, potentially paying for parking if you're not staying on property, and also the cost of gas to drive around to where you're going. So if cost is a consideration for you, then I would definitely rely on Disney's transportation for at least 99% of your stay. Another comparison to look at is the time to get from park to park when you're driving yourself versus taking Disney's transportation. There's all kinds of different scenarios where one may be better than the other. If you're short on time and need to get to another park for like a reservation or something, driving yourself or taking a rideshare will generally be faster than a Disney bus, because if a Disney bus isn't there, like ready and waiting, it could be 20 minutes before the next one shows up, or they could be waiting until there are more people. So you just don't know exactly how long it's going to take if you're in a hurry. But if you're not on a time crunch, driving yourself takes about as much time, because you do have to think of, like, if you're leaving, say, Animal Kingdom. The buses are right there at the park entrance, but your car may be, towards the back of the parking lot. So you're either going to walk there or take the tram. So it may take you more time to leave. And then you have to, situate yourself in the car, maybe put the GPS into where you're going, and then drive around and do all of that. Park again, depending on where you're parking, it's going to take time to get to the front. Whereas if you walk out and there's a bus there and the bus leaves within 5 minutes and then it drops you right off there at the front again, then that one would have ended up being faster. So we're only talking about maybe 10 or 15 minutes difference, probably on average. So the time just kind of depends on if it's a little bit more of an emergency or more urgent. I would drive myself or get a ride share. But for your average visit, the time doesn't really differ all that much. The Disney bus stops, by the way, do have these TVs now where it will show you when the next bus is coming for the next destination. So that is something to keep in mind as well if you're, planning on taking a bus. Like, say you're at your resort and you head out to the bus stop and you're like, oh, the next Magic Kingdom bus isn't coming till 11:57, and say it's like, well, here it's 11:52, so it would only be in 5 minutes. So that would definitely be, fast and efficient. But maybe 12:02 could be too late. Maybe you are already behind and need to get going and you can't have that 10 minutes to waste. Then in that case, you can kind of determine on your own. Another thing to keep in mind is with the boats or the Skyliner, those could have delays or closures because of inclement weather, which could affect your ability to get around. So in that case, it also depends on that factor. So here are all of the instances where it is likely faster to take Disney transportation between the theme parks. So if you're going to or from Magic Kingdom, if you are parking, you have to park at the Transportation and Ticket Center and then take either the ferry, a boat, or the monorail up to Magic Kingdom. But if you're taking Disney's transportation, it will drop you off right at the very front of Magic Kingdom, whether it's a bus, the ferry, the boat, the monorail. So going to or from Magic Kingdom, Disney's transportation is always going to be faster, even at park opening and park closing when it's very busy, just because of that extra step you have to take. If you're going between Epcot and Magic Kingdom, they're connected by monorail, so that is also a very easy way to get between those two as well. If you're going between Hollywood Studios and Epcot, they are practically right next to each other because they are in walking distance, but driving would actually be the longest way to get there because their parking lots aren't connected to each other, but you can walk between the two. There's a Skyliner that goes between the two. There's boats that go between the two that are much more direct, and these will take anywhere from like 30 to 45 minutes tops. But driving is going to take you closer to that 45 minutes as well because of the time of getting to your car and going from place to place. So doing a rental car, basically any circumstance outside of the list above, it would be quicker to drive yourself likely unless a bus is pulling right up. So again, like Animal Kingdom, it's not attached to any additional transportation service beyond the buses. So if you're going to wait on a bus, then it's going to be faster to just drive yourself to wherever it is that you're going. Unless it's Magic Kingdom, because again, you got to park at the Transportation and Ticket Center. Some overall experience things to consider when deciding between the two. These are some considerations. Do you like knowing you have your own transportation to get to wherever you need to be whenever you need it? Or do you just want to have Disney handle everything, like you just don't want to drive? Like there's no circumstance where like you're on vacation, I'm not driving, Disney will take me around to where I need to go. Or if you just like taking a variety of transportation options just because it's fun. Like, during the course of your trip, finding ways to take the monorail, take a ferry, take a boat, take a bus, take the Skyliner, just because they're interesting. So those are some things to consider. And then here's some more like major things. So group size, if you have more than 6 people or so in your group, sometimes it can be hard to get everybody onto one transportation service at one time. So for example, these smaller boats outside of Magic Kingdom, they don't hold a ton of people. So if you're trying to go at like a high travel time, like park opening or park closing, it may be hard to get your whole group onto one. So you'll either have to split up or wait for the next one, which can be kind of inconvenient. So when you have a larger group, taking yourself around, driving yourself around, is sometimes easier to do. But a lot of the other services, like with the monorail is quite large. You may not, like if you're kind of some of those last groups getting on, you may not be able to get your whole group into the same monorail car, but the monorail's got like 5 or 6 cars. So you might split up into different cars for the trip, but you'll still get to the same place at the same time, like all together. Could potentially happen. With the buses, again, like maybe they only have room for 3 to 5 people if you're there at the end, and again, you would have to wait for the next one or split up your group. And it depends on like the makeup of your group too. If it's like, 2 adults and 4 kids, like that would be a lot harder to split that up than if it's like, all adults going to like the Food and Wine Festival or something, then it's like, yeah, they could split up. Like that wouldn't be the end of the world. If you are traveling with a stroller, a wheelchair, or an ECV, there are also some considerations to make with that as well. Those small boats, like that picture from above outside, those are only outside of Magic Kingdom, and it's only some of the resorts that have them. They don't accommodate the ECVs at all. So if you're traveling with an ECV, you can't go on those boats. But you can take a stroller or a wheelchair on them as long as they're able to be folded up. So as long as you're not using it as like that you're like wheelchair bound, then that has an accommodation for you. The Magic Kingdom ferry accommodates everything, and so do the buses. With the ferry, you don't even have to fold up the stroller or the wheelchair. You can just take them on like normal. With the buses, you would need to fold up the stroller and the wheelchair and transfer to a seat. And then the buses also have spots where you can stay. You can stay or transfer out of the ECV. It just kind of depends on your situation, but they can put like 2 to 3 in there at a time, depending on which bus comes. But they can fit about 2 to 3 ECVs in there at a time, depending on like which bus you're getting. Some of the newer ones have different accommodations than other ones. With the monorail also, you don't have to fold anything up either. It just kind of depends on like You know, obviously, no one wants to wake up a sleeping baby. But again, if you're traveling during like peak crowd times for park opening or park closing, there may not be room to have the stroller. Like you may be able to fit in if you fold up the stroller and get everybody in there. So, like, that's just something to think about with your own car. You know, unless you have some sort of accommodating vehicle, you would have to fold up the stroller or wheelchair anyway. So, that's something to consider. Special needs or disabilities. Some people just don't do well in crowded spaces or waiting in long lines, and it is just easier for sensory things to just take your own transportation because you have that time, you know, by yourself, just with your own little group instead of just being in massive crowds all day, every day. And then again, your comfortability with crowd levels. If park closing, everything's going to be very busy and very full. There's lots of times they will be squeezing everybody onto the bus and there is nowhere to sit. And as far as that situation, it's pretty hit or miss if people nowadays will offer up their seat to someone who visibly needs it. But the problem is that there's lots of reasons someone may need the seat that you can't see. So that could be why they're not giving up their seat. You can't guarantee. There's definitely some that just don't care, but you never really know. So if you have some sort of issue with that, that could be a problem, having to either stand on the bus or waiting for the next bus because you cannot stand and because no one wants to or can give up their seat. So that's something to consider as well. So overall, should you rent a car or use Disney's buses to travel between the parks? If we're talking about like strictly bus transportation and not any of the other Disney services, I would still always choose the free Disney buses rather than having to drive myself around all the time. Because then also I can use that time sitting on the bus to like check emails or something, or look up something and coordinate things going on at like the next park. But if I'm driving myself, I can't do any of that because I'm driving. So I like that idea, and then just also just not having to drive because I don't particularly care for it. And also for like cost, it's completely free to take Disney's transportation rather than me spending gas or paying for parking somewhere. And then, as just an ending note, if you are going to be drinking at Disney, especially if you're going to like the Food and Wine Festival or something like that, either have a designated driver or take Disney's free transportation. That way, you don't have to worry about that. I do have a complete guide for getting around Disney World without renting a car, which is basically here's how to get around Disney World using all of Disney's various transportation services. That is what I will use 99% of the time. Is I will rely on Disney's transportation to get me everywhere that I need to go. Very rarely am I going to drive myself or pay for a ride share or, you know, the minivan or something, because it's just not necessary unless you are in a hurry or you have some sort of extenuating circumstance with people that are in your group.